Hello, I am Jake Collins, and this is my commentary for the 4th episode of The Mummy Secrets of the Medjai, Like Father, Like Son. We find Alex here, jumping through hoops for Ardith Bay, unsurprisingly, doing this really important Medjai test, finding the dagger that's been hidden in some cave. What a waste of time. And I really like the way Chris says here, when Alex takes out his map to take a look and see if he's anywhere near where he's supposed to be, I'm never going to find this thing. It really sums up Alex's feelings perfectly. At times, if not all the time, he really is very disaffected with his Medjai training and finds it as much of a waste of time as I think it is. So excellent work from Chris there, as usual, and of course that brings me on to the point which I did think of when I was recording the commentary for the previous episode, but I didn't find a place to include. There was so much to say. We really have found out in the previous episode and this episode how Alex, as a character, is absolutely brilliant at leading an episode, being the main character, the one we're really concentrating on, and leads us through the episode with his experiences and his emotions. He's really, really good in that role as the main protagonist of the show. And of course that's a lot thanks to Chris and his absolutely wonderful voice work. That really struck me about Alex in the previous episode, and of course in this one. And as I always say, it's the right direction for the show to take. Alex is a great main character, and Chris does a great job of playing him as the lead character, and it works really, really well for the show. More top drawer Secrets of the Medjai. 10 out of 10. Like the previous episode, this one does an excellent job of squeezing a heck of a lot into 20 minutes. Jack, like Yanit before him, is a character who offers plenty of intriguing times to come, although they don't come in the end, as there are no more seasons of the show, as his interactions with both Alex and Rick are extremely well handled and ripe with potential. The Scarab is by far my favourite villain of the entire series. His witty, acerbic style is wonderful, and I find his ongoing beef with Alex highly stimulating. Yes, indeed, nothing to drag it down to a high 9 there. A 10 out of 10 episode and no mistake. Tom and Greg wrote this, because it is a very important episode, and that's not surprising to learn. And in many ways, I think they actually adapted it from the episode of Extreme Ghostbusters they wrote so well, Rage. And here, of course, is Jack, voiced by guest star Charles Napier, and we may get some inkling about who he is already when he calls Alex Sport there. We've heard Rick call Alex Sport many times, and now we know where Rick got that expression. We may be starting to work out from that and from the title. Rick got it from his dad, and here is his dad. I love the way Chris says here, in response to Jack asking, do you always take walks alone in the worst desert in the world? Alex replies, well, this is the first and hopefully last. And Chris says that so well, and they animate his mouth rather wryly to go with the brilliant bit of voice acting there. As I say, you can really rely on Chris to play Alex so well and lead the episode, and indeed that's what he's doing here, and it's having a really great effect on the show. Jack and Alex have what I call GFA, which is exactly the same thing as GSA, except instead of having sex, you're friendly with each other, you get along, and you don't really know why, and then it turns out you're related, and you go, oh, that's why I've got GFA. It's a much safer thing to do than going straight for the S, really. And despite the fact that they've just spent the night in a tent together, I don't think Jack and Alex have had sex of any description. Alex is saving himself for Yanit, for one thing, and for another thing, it really is only GFA, not GSA. Now, just in case you'd forgotten that Alex can kick some serious butt with the manacle, he's doing it here with these hyenas, and we might well have forgotten by this point, because he didn't really do it in the previous episode. The manacle wouldn't work. But yeah, it's still an asset to him. And when they have a bit of a chat there, Jack and Alex, we find out that Jack is searching for the Scarab amulet. He's kind of a freelance archaeologist. And that's reminded me how I was pleased in the previous episode to see Alex using some of his old archaeological skills, translating skills on that bridge that kills you if you have male genitalia. And we're going to see Alex doing some archaeology in this one as well, helping Jack with his archaeology. So I just thought that was worth mentioning there, as it did occur to me yesterday, and again, there wasn't a place to slip it into the commentary. But here's where we find out, of course. Jack is Rick's father, who abandoned him so many years ago. And Chris, as Alex, does some excellent voice work here, talking to Rick about the whole situation. And indeed, John Schneider as Rick and Charles Napier as Jack play their part as well in creating this three-generation O'Connell interplay that works so well. I've read criticism of this episode saying, well, Rick too quickly forgives his father, I'm not buying that. But I think that's really oversimplifying matters. This isn't the end of it between Rick and Jack. They're not all magically sorted out and best friends forever. But it's the start, a very good start of repairing their relationship, of building a relationship. And there's lots more to come from it in the future, if indeed the show had a future. So it's very well done, squeezed into 20 minutes, as I say. But it's not the be-all and end-all, it's just the beginning, or a new beginning, in fact. You notice Ardith didn't bother trying to persuade Rick, oh no, Alex should stay and do his Medjai training, despite the fact that Alex was upset that Rick wanted to take him home, and Ardith should have been surprised and pleased that Alex didn't say, yeah, actually, that's a good idea, Dad. I'm bored of this frickin' Medjai stuff, let's go home. He's so ungrateful, Ardith. And here, of course, is Alex doing, again, the wonderful bit of voice work. Jack, Grandpa! Chasing after him to go on this archaeological adventure with him, which is absolutely fantastic. What we don't explore at all in this episode is Alex's feelings about Jack's history, and I don't think he really has any yet. He hasn't really thought about it. So again, that would have been something to come back to. Alex's feelings relating to Rick's feelings. As I say, this is only a start, and it's a very good start on the relationship between these three generations of male O'Connells. It struck me in this bit how Alex is being a little reckless, perhaps, very keen for adventure, jumping in head first. I accept there that the manacle couldn't get the Scarab amulet out of the cage because, as Alex said, it was actually trapped in the cage. The manacle moved the Scarab amulet, but couldn't get it through the holes in the bars. That's fine. That's not like where it just wouldn't work for no reason in the previous episode. But yeah, Alex, at this point, is obviously after excitement and adventure and really wild things, and he's diving in head first. He's excited about meeting his grandpa, going on an adventure with his grandpa, proving himself to his grandpa, using his Medjai skills and his manacle skills. And that is all good for Alex, I think. He's, being a little reckless, a little thoughtless, jumping head first, but it's because he's excited, he's enjoying new experiences, lusting after life. It's making him come across as a good and compelling protagonist, and he's doing it for understandable reasons, and it really makes me like the character and sympathise with the character, with him acting in this way and being, perhaps again, Alex the typical kid, and in this case, Alex the typical young man trying to prove himself and have these adventures and really grab life by the conkers, and that's coming across really well, and it's good for him as a character, unlike later in the series where he jumps into things because he's overconfident. But we'll talk about that more when we get to it, of course. And we've just met the Scarab. The Scarab, as I say in my review, is my very favourite villain of the entire series. Rene Auberjonis, or however you pronounce his name, does some absolutely excellent voice work as the Scarab. He has brilliant back and forth with Alex and the other protagonists. He has particular beef with Alex and back and forth with Alex because of the manacle of Osiris. And as we saw there, the Scarab recognised the manacle and was afraid of it. So again, there's a character that has an important place in the whole mythos of the Mummy universe, and promises great times to come in any future episodes, if there were any. And we've now had 4 of those characters in 2 episodes. Yanit and Fadil last time, Jack and the Scarab this time. Should all be involved heavily in any future adventures in this new The Mummy universe, because they're all great characters and can be used in so many great ways, and should be used in so many great ways. And then we have, or we don't have in this episode or the last one, Imhotep, who the show is named after, and who has become a completely redundant part of his own show in a way. And I'll go on to talk about that phenomenon more in the next episode, where it really is very striking. You see here in this bit where the 3 of them are escaping from the Scarab, fighting the Scarab. Jack and Rick at first clash a lot, and then they start working together, find some common ground. It's not a simple thing, the mending of their relationship, or the start of mending their relationship, but it's very effective, and it works very well. And here, of course, we see the mural of Osiris using the manacle to turn the Scarab into the Scarab amulet, and that promises great times to come. Alex should be doing that at some point in the series in the future, if the series had a future, which it actually doesn't, which is disappointing in many ways. Certainly after watching episodes like this, it's disappointing. But the interesting point about Osiris there, he is the god of the dead, and he's happily been called the god of the dead in the first season. But in this season, he's kind of presented as a great hero, a powerful warrior with the manacle, and Alex is kind of following in Osiris's footsteps, which doesn't really fit in with him being the god of the dead. But there we go. They're using him as they see fit. It's just something that strikes me occasionally about Osiris. And there we see Jack's Medjai tattoo. And we get the whole thing about Jack ran away from his Medjai life, and Alex realizes that means I have Medjai blood. I really am a Medjai, and he's really pleased about that. Now, sometimes I do worry, does that slightly undermine the lesson, the message in the previous episode, where Fadil was saying to Alex, you don't have Medjai blood, you're only here because of that manacle, you'll never truly be one of us. And then Fadil learned at the end, well, I was wrong, you are a true Medjai. Shouldn't it then not matter that Alex didn't have Medjai blood at all, he just had Medjai heart? And now that's kind of been a little undermined by the fact that Alex does have Medjai blood. As I say, I do sometimes worry about that. But of course they have to do it, don't they? Because if Alex is going to be the supreme Medjai, he kind of has to have Medjai blood. Or, I don't know, maybe he shouldn't have to have Medjai blood for that. Maybe it does completely undermine the whole point. Anyway, there we go, just a little food for thought there. I like it here when Alex starts to kick some serious butt with the Scarab. Kick being the operative word. He's using his legs to great effect, as we often see him do. Here's where Rick and Jack start to find some common ground. We have to work together to help Alex. It's effectively done. It's believably done. It's not a quick fix-all. It's very good. And as I say, it's the start of things being better between them, between the 3 generations of O'Connells. I was thinking about Alex and his feet. They probably have him doing a lot of kicking and running up walls and jumping and things like that in order to attack people and things, because they don't want to have him punching too much. that is rather overtly violent and perhaps would be frowned upon more in a children's cartoon than a lot of kicking. But Alex does a lot of very devastating kicking. And, well, there we go. It's just punching, but at the other end, really, isn't it? So it shouldn't really make that much of a difference. But an interesting point there, nonetheless, I thought. Now, I do like the effect. Alex doing great work with his legs. Legs in trousers, as they should be. So it works on many, many levels. So a very revealing time there. Getting away from the Scarab, and lots of great strides made in the relationship between the three generations of O'Connells. Absolutely brilliant stuff. They've all helped each other in various ways and found some common ground, and things are going to be better between the three of them. But as I say, it's not the end, it's only the beginning. And here's the bit I promised back in the very first episode commentary. It's the bit where Alex drives the Zephyr. He doesn't really have time to sit back and enjoy it, of course, but it is a long-held ambition finally fulfilled. And here they go, off into the sunset. You'd think it was the end of the action, wouldn't you? But it isn't. Alex is still driving. Rick is saying slightly grudgingly to his father, "Thanks for the save." But now he's interested to know, "Why did you run away?" And Jack says, "Well, I just abandoned my Medjai life. I was wrong. You can't run away from your problems." So that's great strides made in mending their relationship. It's not completely fixed, but it's in a much better place than it's ever been before. And clearly the Scarab is a fan of the Alien films, as he's been hiding on the escape vehicle and then bursts through the front window there. A little bit of extra action at the end that we perhaps weren't expecting. And perhaps could have done without in some ways all this Rick and Alex and the Scarab climbing about on top of the Zephyr. But what's good here is that Alex does get to deliver the final blow. But again, he's not too overly heroic. He does need Rick's help here in order to defeat the Scarab. Rick and his whip, wonderful stuff. Of course, we've already seen a lot of Rick's dynamite in this episode, which is good. One of the things that Rick and Jack were clashing about and then found common ground over. But yeah, Alex gets a couple of final shots in here with the Scarab. First of all, he kicks the Scarab in the face. Excellent. And then they're doing this swinging around together, and Alex cuts the Scarab down, cuts the thing he's holding on to with his Medjai dagger. So perhaps it was worth that little bit of extra fight at the end, just to see Alex doing some more exciting stuff, because, well, that's always good to see. And here we are at the end of the episode, and I love the way Chris says here, "Thanks, Dad," and he puts so much into those two little words, "Thanks, Dad." You couldn't think an actor could put so much into that, but Chris does. When Rick's been saying to him how impressed he was with the way Alex took down the Scarab, and it was wrong to want to take Alex away from his Medjai training. And Alex sums it all up with a nice little look and, "Thanks, Dad." Absolutely brilliant. And Rick says to his dad here, "Don't be a stranger," and they shake hands. Alex is pleased about that. But it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new story, or a new chapter in the same story, perhaps. And what's Jack doing? He's off to find some Medjai MacGuffins. Oh dear. But there we go. Way back into the show, certainly, and a way he should and doubtless would have taken had the show continued. Yet again, Chris makes something of a cliched, cheesy cartoon ending there. "So, Dad, when do I get my Medjai tattoo?" And Rick gives him a look. Again, that could have come across as completely flat and unfunny, but Chris makes it work and makes it endearing and just adds to the journey with Alex through the episode as the main character. And that's an excellent job, and as I say, a solid 10 out of 10. Hopefully you'll join me again next time for a commentary on the next episode, which is far from a solid 10 out of 10. Affair to Remember.